The project today is to inspect, actually to change the brake pads on the front axle and inspect the rotor and see if it's time to change it or not. Right? I can feel here a deep scratch that's kind of catching my fingernail. So the very first step in this project is we will go in to break all of these lug nuts loose before we start jacking up the car. Just break them loose. You don't need to do any more than that. We will do this on the two front wheels and we will be back. Okay, let's go to the other side. Okay. Next step is to lift the car up using a floor jack, and the very first thing we do is to put wheel stoppers behind the back wheels. You know, if you saw this procedure in any of my other videos, please forgive the redundancy, but it is a very important procedure and it deserves to be mentioned so many times. Every time we jack up the car, you know, we need to follow these steps. Now let's go on the front and I will show you where I'm putting my floor jack. Basically right here. This right here is where I position my floor jack. Our next step is to position our stands right here. This is the area. This is the area that the stand need to be right under. Okay. We will do this on the other side, and then we will let the floor jack go, and the car will be supported only on these two stands. You know, some maintenance books and stuff like that tells you to give the car a good shake after you let the floor jack go, and the car is supported only by these two stands, just to give the car a good shake to make sure that the car is stable and it's not going to move or slide while you are working. Okay, now we can let this floor jack go. And the car now is supported by the two stands only. Alright, let's continue. The very first thing we need to do is to drain the old brake fluid. I'm replacing this solid tube with a clear, flexible one to be able to get to the bottom of this reservoir and get everything out. I'll take the cap and the strainer. Right here. Make sure to surround it with shuttles like this, so if it drips, it's not touching anything. You don't need paint. You hold on to the volume up. Okay, I think so. We use Acura brake fluid. And top this off. Okay. With a 17mm socket, reach out for this bolt over here, right, and loosen it. Well, put your ratchet on the left side. This is loosening. If you have any problem figuring out which direction you need to go, this could be just a little bit tight, so you may need to use some force or a breaker bar or something. I'll be right back. Here we go. A breaker bar should do the trick, and we're good. Okay. Once we remove this bolt here, 17mm socket, you can very easily flip this caliper all the way up, right? And sometimes the brake pads stay here or come here, right? Whatever, you just need to pay attention, that's all. And you can secure this with a bungee cord or a piece of wire or whatever you want to use, just to make sure that it's not going to fall while you are working on it. Right, that's pretty much it. Okay, here's our brake pads. That's the back ones. You need to take them very carefully out of the retainer. That's the upper retainer and this is the lower one. You need to inspect the wear pattern, if it's even or not. That's not even. No, it's worn more from here than here. That's not an even pattern, and this could be an indicator that my caliper is sticking or it's not adjusted right. So I will take a note of this and see if I want to change this caliper or just keep an eye on it. But let's see the front one. Take a note of the orientation of the back one. This here is up, right? This wear indicator is up, and you just insert it into the channels of the retainer. Of course, when we install the new ones, we will be lubricating these. Now let's take a look at the front one and see. Okay, that's an even wear. Alright, let's pay attention to the rotor now, because we need to make a decision if we will be changing this rotor during this operation or not. So let me show you how we test this. Alright, let me show you guys what I'm doing here. That's a dial gauge on a stand, right? You just clamp the stand so that you are touching the rotor, okay? And keep in mind that it's already depressed a little bit. So what we do here is we zero out, right? Whatever position we are in right now, we will consider it the zero, okay? I put a marker on one of the studs, so when I take a full turn, I know I'm done. The manual says that you should not have any run out greater than 4,000 of an inch. That's basically you are measuring the irregularity of the flat surface of the rotor itself. So imagine that you know, like you are driving on the road and there is a speed bump. It's something like that, in a very scaled down fashion. It's like microscopic, but basically you are trying to find the ups and downs in this flat surface that looks to your naked eye flat, but it may not be. Every dash on this gauge is 1,000 of an inch. So, and our tolerance is 4,000 of an inch. So if we start turning our wheel, or the rotor I should say, and we see Okay, take a full turn, and it's perfectly flat. It doesn't have 1/1000 of an inch even in it. That's like maybe half. Okay, it's another full turn, and we are well within tolerance. So run out wise, this thing is okay. Now let's measure the thickness of it and see where are we. So what are we doing right now is we're trying to measure the thickness of this rotor. Right. The manual says that the original standard thicknesses should be between 1.1 and 1.11, right? And the maximum refinishing limit is at 1.02, right? So right here we are 1.09. We need to measure from 8 different places. Again, 1.09. 1.1. 1.1. 1.09. 1.1. 1.1. 1.1. 1.1. So almost all of our measurements are 1.1. So we still have a lot to go. With this rotor, we don't need to change it. No, we are fine. We don't need to change it. If what we wanted to do is just to change the brake pads now, this would have been enough. Because we have access to the brake pads right there, right? But because we were going to change the rotor, we will continue with the other bolt for the caliper here. We'll remove this one. It's still 17. Yeah, I will need my other hand, so I'll be right back. Alright, we removed the caliper and just attached it to a bungee, so it's out of our way for now. Next, we will take the bracket off of this. These are the brake pads right there, and we'll take them off and we'll take the bracket off so we can get to the rotor. The caliper bracket is attached by 19mm bolts, and they were tight, so it needed some persuasion from this breaker bar, but they're out. Now the caliper bracket is out, but these two stubborn screws here don't want to get out easy. Alright, the old one is out, and here's the new one. Before we install it, we need to clean it because there is a rust inhibitor material sprayed on the face of it. So we will clean it front and back and then put it in. The new rotor is in now, and I used Loctite thread lock, the red one, on the brand new screws to screw in the rotor. Now, after cleaning the bracket, let's go ahead and install it now. That's the 19mm bolt. We will need to oil this before we thread it in, and then we will torque it. The torque spec for these guys is 101 foot-pound. I torqued it on 3 increments, 35, 70, and now it's the last one, the 101. Let's go. And this is done. We'll need to put the new pads now. One thing I forgot to point out, before I actually put the rotor, right, I covered this whole entire area here with anti-seize, so when the time comes for me to remove this rotor again to replace it, I don't need to fight it so much, and I don't have corrosion and all of this kind of stuff. Just a little bit of anti-seize around this whole entire rim here, right, or the hub, and then you put the rotor in. This will save you a lot of time in the future. Now when you need to return these pistons back, push them back, you know, the problem is if we start doing this, we will be sending dirty oil, alright, brake fluid, back to the master cylinder. We don't want to do that. Alright, so using a 10mm wrench, we're going to break this bleeder valve. Look at this tube to it. Okay. And now we can start pushing this back. You alright?
Yeah, I'm okay.
You see? The brake fluid is going back right there. Right? And what I want to do here, because this is not actually the right tool for this, and I think this is maybe why my my wear wasn't even, because I did this last time this way also. That's a double piston caliper, and it needs a special tool that pushes evenly on the two pistons at the same time. So way, and we'll be careful not to destroy these boots here. If one of these is destroyed, this means that we're going to change the whole entire caliper. Okay. Now we need to install the new brake pads, but first we need to clean these channels right here, get them ready for greasing. Let's get the new pads. We'll be right back. Alright. This is the inner pad with the wear indicator on it. Right. That's the outer pad. And this is both of them a front axle. This is the part number for the whole entire kit. Okay. What we need to do right now is we start greasing the inner surface of the shims with the grease that came with the kit, right? Right before we install these pads, we will need to make sure that these slide guides right here is well lubricated, right there. Right. And what we're doing right now is we are greasing the surface so we can install the shims. Okay. This is the inner shim, right? It goes like this. Alright. And this is the outer shim, and we need to grease this as well. These shims already come with the kit, so there is no need to reuse the old ones. Right, and then it goes this way. Okay. And again, we'll install the inner shim. And then we grease the outer shim. Should be very careful not to get any grease on the brake pad material itself. So before you start handling these, wash your hands or take your glove off. Okay, now time to get these out, and I need to go put some new gloves. I will be right back. Now we need to lubricate these channels right here. And just to make sure that there are no remaining grease, hit the rotor. We give it a turn. You see this? You know, this is the grease. That's a little bit of grease. When we were greasing the channel, we need to clean this, and we need to clean the other side so they don't end up on the brake pads. Okay? With me so far? Good. Now we grab the inner pad with the brake wear indicator on top, and we insert it in the channel. Sometimes this is going to take some finessing to do, so be patient. I think by now, if you are not positive you can control this thing, it's a good idea to remove this pan, just in case it falls down. It's not going to fall in the oil, okay? Okay, this one. Right. Same thing. Here we go. Right, both of them are in right now, brand new. Okay, what we need to do right now is we're going to undo this bungee cord right here and let this guy go. Careful now, so it goes in without interfering with any shims or anything. Okay, what is pushing here, right, is the slide pin, okay, and we need to push this in, okay, and let it rest this way. Like this. It hits like this. All you need to do is just to push this in and then let the caliper go. Right. Now you're alright, and then it will slide and stay in place, and the bolt, of course, will keep it in place. We are good. Alright. Okay, all we need to do now is to put some oil on this bolt, push it back in place, and that's it. We are done. Of course we need to bleed the brakes and stuff like that, but I'll be right back. I will just get some motor oil. Okay. Okay, we need to torque this to 72 Newton meters. That's the torque spec on it. 72 Newton meters are 53 foot-pound. We start at 25 and then 53. Right? The only thing we left to do right now is to bleed the brakes. And to bleed the brakes, you need to be inside the car, Joe. You will go in to pump the brakes for me a few times. I will tell you to hold it, and when I tell you to hold it, don't let go until I tell you, okay? Okay. Before we start bleeding the brakes, we need to make sure that the reservoir is full, because we definitely lost some when we pushed the caliper pistons back in. Here we go. Right, and now I will start bleeding the brakes. The procedure is very simple. Right. Using a 10mm wrench, we're going to tighten the bleeder valve. Joey, yeah. Go ahead. Alright, hold. Again. Hold. Again. Hold. Again. Hold. Okay. The brake fluid right now is coming in this tube, it's coming clear. So we're pretty much done. All we need to do here is to install the wheel. The torque setting for the wheel is 127 Newton meter. The same thing we did here, we will do on the other side. Put the wheels back, torque them 127 Newton meter like we said, and that's it. This job is done. Right. One more thing I have to say. Before you drive the car, take it for a test drive or anything like that, make sure that before you move the car, you pump the brake pedal few times until you feel resistance under your feet. All right, you are basically seating these two pistons and seating the pads and stuff like that. You don't want to ignore this step and try to brake, and all of a sudden you can't find your brake, because these things are still settling in position, they are getting in position and stuff like that. So make sure that you perform this step before you start moving the car. That's pretty much it.